This is WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice.
Welcome to another episode of WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. And on today's episode, we have a Worcester native, entrepreneur, and WCRN host, Gerry Dougherty. Mr. Dougherty is the founder and president of the Boston Independence Group, which is an organization that provides New England retirees safe money strategies to protect and grow their wealth. Though you don't necessarily have to be or should be retired to worry about saving money. The idea of saving money should be in the back of your head throughout your whole life. Gerry's organization offers many different services and tactics on how you can save money for your retirement. Though Gerry is a well-diverse individual whose background just isn't in saving for your retirement. Mr. Dougherty has written books such as his self-published release, Uncomplicated Money, Retirement is Within Reach, and much more. Welcome to the show, Gerry. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Pat, I'm doing great, and it is such a pleasure to be joining you. And thank you, by the way, for asking me on here and the great success on your program.
You know, you're one of the main hosts here on WCRN. You have a fabulous show, Making Money Last. For someone who is constantly teaching and spreading the knowledge about retirement, how is your retirement looking?
My own personal retirement?
Yeah.
My retirement is looking fine. I've been at this, for a long time. Working for many, many years, Pat, and in your opening comments, you mentioned that, consistently saving money over time. I was fortunate in that that's the counsel that I got when I was pretty young, so I have been doing that. So I'm actually in pretty good shape. But I will tell you, Pat, I really enjoy working as well. I think that, to truly be happy in life, there are things, obviously way beyond money, as we all well know. I'm stating the obvious.
Yeah.
But and one of them, I think for most people, is having some type of mission in life. So running my firm and having done this for 32 years and working in the financial services industry is really just a pleasure, and it's something that I intend to keep on doing it for as long as I possibly can.
And it keeps you active as well, because as I've heard before with people with retirement, they retire, they end up not having anything to do. Their hobbies kind of get boring. Going to the beach so many times only as fun as it can get, So it's great to always keep busy and have a passion and do something that you love. And it seems like you've always had an interest in finances and economics.
Yeah, well, I was an economics major in college. I graduated from the University of Massachusetts way back, Pat, in the Stone Ages, relative to your age, in 1981. And after I first graduated from college, believe it or not, I was a police officer for 5 years, from 1981 through 1985. Down in the town of Barnstable, down on Cape Cod, in, the Hyannis area and all of that. And having done that for 5 years, being a police officer is obviously very, very laudable. It's a wonderful profession. But after doing it for 5 years, I realized it just wasn't the right career for me. So that's when I returned to my love of economics, my college major, and entered the financial services industry. That was in January of 1986, which now is more than 32 years ago. Hard for me to believe.
Wow, it flies by.
A long time, yeah.
And you grew up in Worcester. How do you feel about the city's education? Do you think that economics and how to save money should be taught in schools at an early age and not just in higher education such as college?
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. I think that, topics that would make any student more self-sufficient, I think, are really important topics. Economics clearly being one of them, how to handle money and so on. But I even think little things. I have 4 kids of my own, Pat, 3 daughters. And one of the things that was important to me is to teach them how to change the tire on a car. So there are many things beyond just money that maybe we should be teaching in schools. Some of the more basic life skills, I think, would be pretty good.
I really agree with that, because it's a fact that nowadays there's a lot of trade jobs that are open and the trade jobs are being abandoned. So how many young guys do you know that can just go and fix their car? They get a flat, they know what to do.
Pat, I cannot agree with you more. I think that trades are really, really important. In my program earlier this week, I covered some numbers, and it showed Americans age 24 and older without a high school diploma. So these are the most unskilled people in the workforce, where wages for the general population increased by 2.7% year over year, May of 2018, May of 2017. In that category, over 24 years old, without a high school education, wages have increased 10%. So it really is. We're coming back into, I think, a lot of manufacturing and where trades are really a great route for kids to go. The other piece of it, of course, is the cost of a college education.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would submit to a lot of people that kids are better off establishing a great trade and not being saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in college debt.
And when you learn a trade, you can eventually, a lot of these guys end up running their own business. They might start with some independent contractor, learning the business and the trade even better. And then before you know it, they have their own truck, their own tool of supplies, and they're going out and doing jobs themselves completely.
There are plenty of resources of people like me and like accountants and attorneys and stuff that can help them run that business and structure the business correctly and protect themselves liability-wise and how to handle money and do all sorts, I will tell you, Pat, of really cool things through corporate benefits, how to save money for retirement, how to pay for automobiles, a whole bunch of different things that they can do through that corporation that are really interesting. It's great to have a corporation.
Absolutely. So how did you find the Boston Independence Group?
Well, what I did is I had been working in a lot of corporate roles within the financial services industry for the bulk of my career. And then in 2008 and 2009, I had a real turning point in my thinking. In 2008 and 2009, we had the mortgage crisis. So we had markets that dropped off by an average of 40%. Some markets dropped off by a lot more. For example, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 52% during that period of time. Its worst decline, Pat, since the Great Depression. And I saw people who were close to retiring who lost roughly one half of their retirement savings. So what I did is I searched for a platform and I searched for products that would protect a retiree savings from loss. And in 2012, now 6 years ago, I formed Boston Independence Group, that is a Massachusetts incorporated retirement firm located in Westboro, right on Route 9, 182 Turnpike Road. But we, as you mentioned in your introduction, we specialize in safe money strategies for people who are close to retiring.
We have to take a quick break, but in our next segment, we will continue our conversation with Gerry about how you can save money for retirement, some of the services that Boston Independence Group has to offer, and how much money you will be spending during your retirement. You've been listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830.
Welcome to WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.
We are back. And in our last segment, we introduced Gerry Dougherty, who is also a WCRN host for the show Making Money Last and the CEO of the Boston Independence Group. We discussed about how Gerry got involved with finances and economics and how he went on to build the Boston Independence Group to what it is today. We also discussed about our educational system within our society and how you can prepare for retirement. Let's continue. How do some of your services work? Could you mention some of your plans?
Sure. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at the amount of money that somebody has saved. And when you reach retirement's doorstep, the issues become very different than the issues that you've faced as you're accumulating assets for retirement. So when you're in your 30s, your 40s, you're accumulating assets, then all of a sudden one day you wake up in the blink of an eye and you find yourself at 65 years old, and what you have is you have a pile of assets, but you're really not quite sure what to do with those assets. So a lot of people are very good at bringing you to retirement's doorstep, helping you accumulate those assets. What we're very good at is we're very good at maximizing the income off of those assets that you can take, because retirement is all about income, spending money. How do you have streams of income that come in month after month, year after year, kind of like Social Security, streams of income that you can't outlive. Mm-hmm. How to maximize that income from those piles of assets. And then number two, how to ensure that the income is there for your entire life, no matter how long you live.
How much damage did the 2008 market crash cause? Like, did it affect your retirement plans? And do you see another market crash in the future?
Well, I think that, the market crash of 2008 into 2009 was pretty darn severe, obviously. It's become known as the mortgage crisis. And at that point in time, we had markets that dropped off again by an average of 40%. And we had other markets that dropped off by even more. So anybody who had market exposure at that point in time participated in that drop to some extent. Now, I'll meet people and they'll say I did lose right around 40%. I'll meet other people who may have lost 20% and some who lost even more because they were really far out in the risk spectrum. So it really affected a lot of people. Market crashes are just cyclical in nature. You're going to have more market crashes going into the future. Nobody knows when. Nobody knows what will bring them on. But if we look back historically, we can see market crashes throughout the history. Now, the definition of a market correction is a 10% decline or more. So recently, coming off January 26th of this year, we had a high in the Dow. The market several times throughout the spring was lower, 10% or lower. So we were in correction territory several times throughout the spring. If we get into a bear market is defined as a 20% decline or more. We haven't been in a bear market for quite a while.
That doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound good. It's not good. But everybody participates in these declines, Pat, anybody who has market exposure.
How much money is enough money for retirement?
Well, it's, of course, dependent upon who you are. It's a very subjective thing. So some people may not need a lot of money in retirement. That probably doesn't describe a lot of the listeners to this program. Some people are going to need a healthy amount of money in retirement. That probably describes the bulk of people out there. Yeah. And then some people may need a lot of money in retirement. So when you look at how much money you have to save, it's a very subjective thing. It's person by person. But as important, and I want to be very clear about this, Pat, as important as it is to save money for retirement, coming up with the right strategy to distribute that money in a retirement income is just as important. For example, if I said to somebody, would you rather have $100,000 saved for your retirement, or would you rather have $90,000 saved for your retirement? Virtually everybody would say to me, I'd rather have $100,000 saved for my retirement. I don't think anybody listening to me right now would disagree with that. Mm-hmm. But then if I rephrase the question and I said, well, would you rather have going into retirement $100,000 that's spinning off a 3% income, meaning $3,000 a year? Would you rather have $90,000 that's spinning off 4% a year, $3,600 as income? Then you might say, well, gee, I'd rather have the $3,600 income. So it's not just how much have you saved, it's how do you intelligently now turn those savings into a retirement income for somebody. And some strategies are better than others. So we can very often overcome for people if they haven't saved enough money for retirement. We can overcome that by using the right strategies that produce more income from their savings than other strategies that they might be considering.
Absolutely. And, we live in such a conglomerate society where there's shopping plazas in basically every town and city. There's malls, and within a mall is several different kind of businesses. And it seems like everything, in a way, is sucking money out of your pockets. And as Americans, we tend to live large. We love to have the bigger houses, the nicer cars, all-day buffets. So what are the main financial burdens that the average American has, and why do many, even if they did have a good job, still struggle with retirement? Well,
the main expenses, to answer your question, I would encourage people to tune into my program on Monday morning from 11 to noon, Making Money Last, because in segment number 1, that's precisely what I'm going to discuss. So I had broken it down into 4 categories that people should consider. One of them is of course, housing and the expenses going along with housing. Now, a lot of people, what I'll see is people will sell their homes as they get into retirement. They have big homes that they owned, and now the kids are all grown, and they have more space than they need, and they also have more bills than they need. Mm-hmm. So they will downsize in retirement. But one of the big categories of expenses is housing. Another big category is food, entertainment, clothing, all of that. That's something that we can kind of control. And generally, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they show, and it might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but this is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that you will spend less money in that category when you're in retirement on food and clothing and entertainment. So in retirement, you're going to spend a little bit less. The third category that I discuss in my program is transportation, and transportation expenses to go down as well from your working years once you enter retirement, and eventually we're all going to get to the point where just driving isn't feasible anymore. So we're all going to have to get rid of our car and figure out other transportation. And then the last category, the fourth big category, of course, is healthcare costs. And as you get older, you'll spend a greater and greater amount of money on healthcare than when you're younger. When you're in your 50s, it's roughly 8.8% of your money goes to out of your income, goes to out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. But by the time you get up into your 70s, that number, this again is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it goes up to about 16% of your income. So it becomes a substantially bigger number as we age. And clearly, if you go out into your 90s and really have some healthcare needs, that number is going to increase even from there.
Healthcare, it's pretty pricey. Okay, we have to take a quick break, but once we get back, we will continue our conversation with Gerry about how you can be ready for retirement, along with the services that the Boston Independence Group has to offer you, and so much more. You've been listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830.
You're listening to WCRN Weekend. Once again, here's your host, Pat Rice.
And we return. In our last segment, we continued our discussion with Gerry about how the Boston Independence Group can help you with a future secured retirement, along with future market crashes, how we live in a conglomerate society, and so much more. In this segment, we're going to touch upon Gerry's first self-published book, Uncomplicated Money, Retirement is in Reach, along with the future of economics and secure finances and retirement, and so much more. Now, could you tell us about your book, Uncomplicated Money, Retirement's in Reach, and how people can get their hands on a copy of the book?
Sure. So my book is called Uncomplicated Money. It's a book that took me 3 years to write, and it was published in the fall of 2016, so not quite 2 years ago. So Uncomplicated Money is available on Amazon.com. If you go to Amazon.com, either type in Uncomplicated Money or my name. It's Gerry with a G, Dougherty, Dougherty, kind of that hard Irish way of spelling it. It'll come right up. It's right on Amazon.com. You can order it right through there. The book itself is a series of short stories that explain complex financial concepts that every retiree needs to know. So what I've found in my 32 years in this industry is that many times retirees are explained concepts in a very math-based way. And some people are okay with math, and some people aren't. So if I use a series of short stories, I can sometimes explain these financial concepts better to people. Let me give you a quick example, Pat.
Definitely.
A quick example is if I talk to people about diversification, most people don't get that. And if I can show them historically, this is how something diversified, a portfolio that's diversified has operated vis-a-vis a non-diversified portfolio. So I can go through all of those numbers and explain it to people, and they'll probably leave my office with their eyes glazed over. But rather than doing that, if I say to them, think about a picture window in your backyard. You may have in your family room a big picture window that overlooks your backyard.
Yeah.
So if there are some kids out there playing baseball and the baseball hit your picture window, it would probably shatter the entire window because it's one big window.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about diversification, what if that window were broken into 24 panes of glass rather than being one big window? So if the baseball just hit one pane of glass, then it would break that pane of glass. So you might have to replace one or maybe even two panes of glass, but you don't have to replace the entire picture window.
Mm-hmm.
That explains why it's important to have retirement portfolios that are well diversified, because something may go wrong with one or two pieces of it, but it's unlikely to go wrong with the whole. It's a series of short stories that explain these complex financial concepts in an understandable way, but they're financial concepts that every retiree needs to get their arms around.
That everyone can understand and enjoy as well.
Yeah.
I love the picture window story. I mean, that's great. That's a great image because, if you just have that one window, that one plan, and something hits it or something happens, that one big picture or one big plan is ruined. So if you have several different plans that all lead to one big picture, then you're going to be set. So I want to ask you, how is the future looking for millennials with retirement, do you see products and services in society just getting more expensive than cheaper?
I can tell you that in financial services, products have gotten remarkably cheaper, and they have gotten much better over the years that I've been in financial services. That has happened for a couple of reasons. I think, number one, technology has really been key to this. All these financial services companies, whether they're insurance companies or whether they're regular investment companies, they are not loaded with employees anymore. They're loaded with computers that crunch all of these numbers and do all these calculations that it used to take a bunch of guys in little green visors with pencils behind their ears, hours, if not days, if not weeks to do. And they didn't work on Christmas or other days. These computers work 24/7,
nonstop,
and they are constantly crunching the numbers. So that has brought the overhead way down at a lot of these companies. And then also forecasting has gotten a lot better on a lot of products. How they see the future and how accurate they are on what is going to happen. It's just gotten better. So overall, I think it's a fair statement to say when you look at the bulk of financial service products, they become more streamlined and actually cheaper with better pricing models, more consumer-friendly pricing models. That's what's happened over the past 30 years, and it's really happened dramatically over the past 15 years or so. So I think for millennials, people like you, Pat, young guys, and my kids are all right around your age, I think the future looks really bright. I think they're going to go into the future with products that bring multiple features to them, having $1 in one product doing multiple jobs. And then on top of that, there's better pricing in them. I think they're much more streamlined and will work a lot better. I think it's been a terrific evolution what's happened in financial services.
So it seems like the future of investing in retirement service is a bright one and a positive one.
I do. I really do. It's funny, when you're young, I don't think you can really see the future, So I think that advice that you gave at the opening of the show, just save money. It almost doesn't matter. It almost does not matter what you're doing with that. If you're just saving money when you're young, this is the advice I give my kids. That's an important thing. But you'll be shocked, and a lot of the listeners right now, people who are listening to us, they would attest to this. I promise you, Pat, in the blink of an eye, you're going to find yourself at 60 years old. It just happens like that. It's that fast. And when you wake up, if you've been consistently saving money, and if you started to employ maybe more sophisticated strategies in your 40s and your 50s, you'll find yourself in great shape. So I do think that for millennials, the future is probably great. And then with Social Security, I think that millennials will probably feel the bulk of changes in Social Security, but there'll be innovative new designs that will come along there as well. So I do think overall, this is going to be okay for everybody. If we all take a deep breath, I think everybody who's retiring, you will be okay if you employ the right strategies. And I do think that for millennials, you will be okay if we take a look at what's going to happen over the next 40 years or so, over the next 4 or 5 decades.
And I would just want to mention, when it comes to saving money, because when I was in my early 20s, when I had my first full-time job, all my buddies all had our first full-time job. We finally have money, and we're like, wow, this is great. So we're going out to eat. We're just thinking it's guaranteed that we'll always have a check coming. And when you start saving money, it becomes almost addicting in a way. When you have a goal, you're like, all right, I'm almost at that goal. I'm about to reach it, but now I want to reach to the next level. And it got to a point when I was spending more money than I should have back in the day that I would feel kind of sick. I'll be like, spent way too much money. And then you realize when you walk into a restaurant or some entertainment venue that a lot of what they have to offer is overpriced. And you really begin to realize how much just a chicken sandwich and some fries and a couple drinks may really cost you in the long run.
Right. There's no question. You have to be aware of those things. And that comes also with a degree of maturity. As you get older, you're going to make better financial decisions. Even, the classic thing that everybody talks about, I get shocked when, you hear on the news or whatever, I'm not really in these coffee shops anymore, but you get shocked. People going into coffee shops and spending $5 for a cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, have you lost your mind? For a little bit of water, a whole ton of ice, and a straw in a plastic cup. It's nuts, So there are all sorts of ways that people can cut back. But again, it's very subjective. It's based upon the individual. There are ways that I can still cut back, Part of it, too, is balancing it against living. We are human beings. We're only here for a finite number of years. I don't think anybody really wants to live like a hermit.
No.
in saving money in every single area, but we need to make wise decisions. So there has to be that balance there. I think that, Pat, comes with maturity, and you're a very mature guy relative to your age, even thinking about these things already.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. And I just want to go off on one more note that you mentioned, that you should treat yourself in this lifetime, because at the end of the day, you can't take the money with you.
You can't. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So.
Very true. Does Making Money Last have some news for WCRN?
Well, we do. Making Money Last actually has some really big news, and that is that, Pat, I've been on WCRN now for 5 years. In August, I'll be entering my 6th year, and the station has just treated me very well. Program's done well. Had a lot of success with the program, and they've asked me to go to 5 days a week. So now beginning Monday, Making Money Last will be on Monday through Friday from 11 to noon time. So again, Monday through Friday, 11 to noon. I'm very excited about that.
That is awesome. And what a terrific lineup for the station. We're kicking off early afternoon and into the mid-afternoon first. We have the news in the morning, and then we have Gerry right at 11, and then right at 12 at the top of noon, you have Douglas. So we have a lot of very great, informative, knowledgeable shows that people can take a lot from. I'd like to thank you for coming on my show today, Gerry. How can people get in contact with you or the Boston Independence Group and find out more information?
Sure. Anybody who would like to reach me, I'd encourage them, especially if you're close to retiring. I truly would encourage you to reach out. The telephone number at my office, which is located in Westboro, right on Route 9, we're at 182 Turnpike Road, not too far from the Westboro Shopping Plaza. My very easy-to-remember telephone number there is 877-772-1776. Again, 877-772-1776. They can also reach me via email at Gerry, and it's Gerry with a G, Gerry, at BostonIndependenceGroup.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Gerry, and I appreciate you coming on to the show today.
Thank you, Pat.
This has been WCRN Weekend, and your host, Pat Rice.